Welcome to Real Estate Investing for Professional Men and Women, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Hello, and welcome to this version of the Real Estate Investing for Professional Men and Women podcast. We've got a special guest today who I'll introduce here in just a moment. But before we do, just a quick reminder, if you're listening to this, it's probably because you are a professional in your field. Professional meaning you could be a professional firefighter, a dentist, an orthodontist, a chiropractor, a policeman, a teacher, an accountant, a pilot, for example. The point is I've learned in the past, guys, that when I work with people who feel, think, speak, and act professionally like a business person, always do a better job of investing in real estate. And that's been my story. So that's if you're on here, it's for good reason. If you haven't subscribed yet, obviously go to any one of the 75 channels, including iTunes and iHeartRadio, and subscribe to the podcast. So this is typically, we're business owners. I'm not saying you have to be, but a lot of us just happen to own our own business, or we own our own practice if we're a service provider like a dentist or chiropractor. We do advocate having skin in the game, okay? I know it runs counter to everything you see on late night TV, and it did for me too. But I can tell you from 33 years of experience, guys, when you put skin in the game and you practice the fundamentals, okay, just like in any sport or any business you're in, it all comes down to the fundamentals. The success you see is only the top 10% of the iceberg. The 90% underneath is what we're talking about here. Using correct methodologies and strategies and tools and techniques, aligning yourself with the right business partners, the right lender, the right insurer, the right attorney, the right inspector, the right contractor, and more importantly, the right investor agent. These are a specially trained group of people in the residential real estate world, but they're not practicing you and I buying our own homes. They're practicing the art and science of helping you and I build wealth and income in real estate. Okay? That's who we like to work with. We're all about leverage, because people who leverage get more with less. For example, if you're thinking right now, I don't really have a lot to work with, chances are you probably have something to work with. And at minimum, you bring a certain level of skill and talent to the game. But what we do is we help you leverage what you've already got. So when you do borrow money, you're borrowing strategically and not you're not borrowing against someone else's assets, you're borrowing against your own, okay? And it may mean a business loan against your current practice, using always have that in a separate LLC. Your real estate should be in a separate LLC, so you can borrow money from one, lend it to the other. There's all kinds of neat things you can do. We're also community oriented. In other words, when we invest in real estate, we're not buying the cheap, crappy stuff, okay? We're buying better properties. I'm not saying grade A luxury. What I'm saying is good, solid C properties, attracting good tenants with jobs and checking accounts, okay? We do flip homes, but quite frankly, wealth and income is built more on building a portfolio of rentals. And also our own internal community is now about 3,500 strong across the U.S. and Canada. And you can participate in that too, simply by going to myinvestmentservices.com. And you'll get the link in here in your post-pod information. You can go in there, you can click on it. I think they give you a month for free, but you can participate with everyone else, just like you and I, not just the other investors, but the service providers who screen to work with you. The properties that you can grab, off-market properties, are all in there. So without further ado, though, what I want to do is introduce you to a friend of mine, Cody, who practices the art and science of helping you save money on taxes and make more of the income you've already got, so you can do it legally, correctly, and structured properly. But I want to let Craig talk about himself, because he'll do a much better job. So Craig, welcome aboard, man.
Gary, thanks a lot for having me. Happy to be here. So I'm a CPA. I'm also a certified tax coach. I'm a business owner. And prior to becoming a CPA, I was a New York City police lieutenant for about 17 years. So as a certified tax coach, I belong to a select group of practitioners that undergo in-depth training on a regular basis and looking for legal but different ways to keep more of what you make.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, I appreciate your background. I know you're from the Big Apple, and I know we've spoken about that, and I've got some family members up there or friends close by, so I appreciate what you've done in your history, and I think you bring a lot of skills and talent from your background to your business. I love the fact that you're in your own practice, and I love the fact that you're teaching, particularly, you're focused on. You have a book here you're going to show in a bit that's focused on dentists. What I like about this is dentists are themselves entrepreneurs. They're business owners. They have two businesses: the businesses of being in business and the business of the practice that they offer, the service they offer to the consumers. So they get this. They understand the principles and fundamentals of being in business. But so if you could do me a favor, I appreciate you sharing a little bit about who you are, but digging a little bit deeper, like I'll ask you the big why question later on so people are more familiar with you at the end here. But focus a little more about the what you do. Like describe to me if I was a dentist and you and I met at a conference or something, and I said, "Hey, Craig, man, I've been doing this for years. My fear is I'm going to be stuck behind the chair for the rest of my life because I got this practice, but I am the practice. And 55 years old, maybe 10 years to go. What what can I do? Am I doing everything correctly with my taxes? Please help me." So does that sound like a good avatar to?
Yes. So the book is the 12 biggest tax mistakes that cost dentists thousands. So we work with dentists and other professionals. And what we do is we work with them to do a couple of things. Number one, my former background, I learned how to communicate with people. So I might have been working in Midtown Manhattan and dealing with, corporate titans, or I might have been in, the lower income areas of the city. But either place I was at, I needed to know how to communicate with different people. And you have to communicate with different people in different ways. So that's a big skill that we bring to working with our clients. We communicate with them. And we focus on tax planning. And tax planning is looking for ways to do things maybe a little bit differently so they pay less tax and they keep more of what they make. Our typical client, I call them the progressive dentist. They're not running their practice like my father's dentist. They're running it in a way where they're looking to build a business. It's not just a medical practice, it's build a business. And then they want to take that business and the money that they're earning and then use that to go on and invest in real estate and other types of investments. So what we do is we help them save money, all right? We work with them throughout the year. And if you talk to a typical accountant, unfortunately, tax planning is telling you in November, December, how much money you need to pay in January. We like to work with our clients all year so we can reduce the amount of money they pay in January.
Awesome. Hey, by the way, what would you say when you first meet a new client, new prospect like a dentist? What would you say is the biggest mistake you see them making in their practice regarding taxes?
Oh, no planning at all. Just basically working, spending more time looking into the car they're going to get versus looking at how can I do things a little differently and save some money. And typically the CPA they're working with is just interested in putting the right number in the right box, which is important, but it should go further than that.
All right. Well, by the way, you mentioned meeting. How often do you suggest a dentist meet with his or her CPA? Like, why is that important? Maybe it's monthly. So just tell me a little bit about that because I'm intrigued by that part of it.
Our typical client is having a Zoom meeting with us once a month where we go over the financial statements, the P&Ls and the balance sheet. And the reason you want to do that is, number one, having good, timely, accurate information allows you to make good decisions. And number two, it just gives them a sense of what's going on, and it gives us a sense of what they're doing. So maybe they're looking to buy a piece of real estate, and maybe we want to do it a certain way, or maybe they're selling stuff. If we have this communication all the time, we're going to get all that information. If we don't speak with them, happens all the time. You'll talk to a client in March and he says, "Oh yeah, I sold this piece of real estate and then I bought this, but now he owes a couple $100,000 in taxes." There might have been a more efficient way to do it. So having the communication, helps everybody know what's going on, and we can help them save money.
Excellent. Well, that sounds like it's a little bit more proactive as opposed to reactive, which sounds like a lot of dentists are more reactive. So and I've seen in your material you talk about that proactive tax planning. So that sounds like that's really what the outcome is when you meeting with your tax advisor or your tax accountant on a regular basis, you're able to anticipate and plan for the future, just not react to trying to clean up something that happened in the past.
Exactly. It's just doing proper planning.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, I've got to ask you, I don't know how much time you have, and I appreciate you doing this. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this, because a lot of my clients just happen to be practitioners like dentists and orthodontists again, and they're all in the same type of methodologies. But you talk a lot about the 12 most expensive tax mistakes. Maybe explain some of those, because people listen to this, they may be going through that now because of the time of year we're in. So that, if you can do all 12, that's great. But maybe pick the ones you think are the would have the greatest immediate impact right now.
Sure. Well, failing to plan is the biggest, because without planning, you have nothing. Operating out of the wrong business entity, we'll see dental practices that have been around for over a decade, and maybe they should be operating out of a different type of entity. And all too often, it's very simple to correct. It's not like we have to go and get a new tax ID number and stuff like that. So operating out of the wrong entity, now there's a lot of things to look at under the new tax rules with qualified business income. Are there ways to, if you're a dentist and your taxable income is over $315,000, that deduction is phased out. So are there ways that we could, if you're close, can we get you down to that 315 to 415 number? So you get some of that 20% deduction.
Right.
Medical benefits, a big one. Another one, home office. Are you using the home office deduction? And home office deduction itself doesn't help you a whole lot. It's not a big number.
Right.
But with the phase out of real estate taxes and state taxes in some states, it can make a difference. In addition, it opens up the legitimacy of vehicle expenses, auto, because now you're going from one office to another. It also opens up the home athletic facility. Okay, so if you have a home office, you could have a home athletic facility. That could be your backyard pool. It could be your home gym. So those things can, turn into big dollars. Hiring your kids, if your kids are working for you, tax court has ruled you could hire your kids after 7. I like to wait till they're 11 years old before my clients start hiring them. And now you could pay a kid, if he's the proper wage, up to $12,000 a year, and he's not going to pay any federal income tax on that.
Wow.
So that's basically, so if you have 3 kids, you could actually put $36,000 away tax-free.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things. Hiring your kids, the right retirement plan,
Okay.
What are you doing with your money? Sometimes, especially now with qualified business income, maybe a profit sharing, maybe a defined benefit, all of a sudden you're getting your income low enough that now you're getting this extra deduction on top of it. That could be a lot of money.
Right.
So, which could actually almost take up the amount of money that you're giving away to employees, or even be more than that, because you're getting this other $60,000 deduction that you wouldn't have got. And if you're in the 34% bracket, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, you're talking some pretty good numbers. And the thing is that I've learned from my own business and my own experience of building wealth and income, having multiple businesses, that, you really got to play defense too. And you got to play offense to generate the revenue and build the wealth. But boy, if you don't play defense and keep some of it, and so you can invest it more, it's just going to get pittered away. It's going to go to the Uncle Sam. And famous saying, and I forget who said this, was, the tax code is there for us to use. It's not meant to be ignored. It's meant to be used by people like us. And part of that defense is the things you described there. And the other thing I want to describe is this: is I can tell you, I've been blessed enough to know some very successful people in my life. I've met Robert Kiyosaki. I've been able to meet him. Robert Herjavec from the Shark Tank, and every one of them, even though they enjoy the finer things in life, they're actually very frugal. I've never met a truly wealthy person who built it from the ground up, who was not a good custodian of what they got. And proper tax planning is part of being a good custodian. So, hey, another thing that came to mind is, I know a lot of people ask us, you're in New York, great place. I love the Big Apple. Just spent a month there back in September. And me, I travel all over the U.S. and Canada. But with what you do, are you able to serve people in the lower 48 states, or even all 50 of the U.S. states? Or how does that, like the where for your practice? What can you tell people about that?
Yes. So with technology, it's a wonderful thing. In Zoom, we have clients across the country. I will say we're basically in the lower 48. All right. California, Oregon, Washington, as far away as you could get, Arizona. We're all over. There are some intricacies in different state tax codes that we just have to be aware of. I'm lucky I have a great network of other CPAs across the country. Yeah, we have clients all over. And, some states like California, Michigan, high state taxes, you could really save, that you add that up and now you're at over 50% in taxes.
Yeah. There's a statistic that came out recently. Californians, the average Californian pays 62 cents out of every dollar they earn in taxes.
Yep. Yep. Well, if you're in the top tax rate in California, you're at 37% federal and 13% California. That's 50%.
Yeah.
So every dollar that I could find you in deductions that are legitimate, you're saving 50 cents.
Yeah.
Makes my job easy.
Yeah, that's right. You have more to help people save. So
That's right.
well, one of the things I want to ask you about too is this: is I keep thinking through all that's happened since I got out of college, graduated in 1985, bought my first property in 1986. Because you remember that the famous Tax Reform Act in 1986 came out that took away a lot of loopholes for S-type certs, S-corp people like doctors, for example. And then 87, of course, was that we had the Black Money October crash. But since then, I've been through a number of recessions. Of course, the big one, 2007 and on forward through 2011. And then recently, about this time last year, the new tax plan came out, the new tax code. But as far as timing, like what can you tell people about that? I know for me personally, I wish I'd have started 20 years ago kind of thing. But there's a lot that's been changing. People are concerned about the future. What's capital gains? Did the new tax plan hurt me? Did it help me? What can you tell people about timing and where they are? I mean, maybe they started in the 80s like me, and they're in their 50s now. But if you could think through some of that, because a lot of people, they really don't know where they fit in time-wise,
Right. And I think they need to have a conversation, and they should have ongoing conversations with their CPAs and advisors. But I haven't come across any business owner that's really been hurt by the changes. There's so much stuff out there that they can take advantage of. Real estate, there's a lot of real estate now is even subject to the qualified business income deduction. So if you have that piece of real estate that's generating $10,000 in profit, they're going to give you another $2,000 deduction off of that. So it's important to communicate with your CPA, and that he or she communicates back with you so you can take advantage of everything that's out there. And it's not simple, but it's not rocket science either.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. I know for me personally, what came out last year, I'm better off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've seen any business owners that are worse off.
Right. Even my dad, he's going to be 83 in another month and a half. He says he's even way better off, and he's retired. He's a former U.S. Army, retired, then Senior Executive Services, which is a branch above the civil servants. Did that, retired, got a pension from that. Then the government still paid him as a contractor's fee to go around lecture and teach. He gets that money, but he's not working now. I mean, he's basically retired, but he's much better off as a result of this. And, you made me think of something as you were speaking, and I forget where I heard this, but when it comes to the tax code, people who are good with money always figure out, not what it says, but what does it not say. I'm not saying push the envelope and take a necessary risk, but people are often assuming things that just aren't there. And, when you can look and see what it says and what it doesn't say, you can find more applications. And it's all legit stuff. And it's there to be used,
Right. And when we do a tax plan for somebody, that's always the question always comes up. Well, my guy says I can't do that. Well, and I say, well, here's the tax plan. Here's the code that it references. Bring this back to your guy and to ask him why it doesn't say that.
Right.
So if the code allows you to do it, like you said, all the people out there that we all know they have, Donald Trump's got, a ton of lawyers and tax advisors, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates. Why can't the regular guy do that?
That's exactly right, which is where you come in. So I really appreciate what you're doing. Hey, if you could, and I'm going to wrap this up in a few minutes, but I got one more good question is, so what would you say are like how do you do what you do? What are the steps? You meet somebody, you do a Zoom interview, and I know everybody's different. It's not one size fits all, but like what steps could someone anticipate? What could they imagine that they've got to provide you to help you help them,
Right. So we're going to give you a link for our book so somebody can request our book. We'll send them a paper copy. But the typical steps is somebody contacts us. We have a short 15-minute phone call with them. if it makes sense that we might be able to give them some value, we'll ask them to securely send us their prior year tax returns. We'll do an analysis, then we'll get on a Zoom call with them and we'll go through this, what we think this tax savings will be. And then if they want to move forward, they'll pay us and we'll do a tax plan for us. Our tax plan is 100% fully refundable. And in 8 years, no one has asked for their money back because we know going in what they're going to save. And if you have a 3, 4, 5,000% ROI first year, it makes sense. It's instant gratification.
Awesome. Well, by the way, I'm going to call out the link here during the podcast, but it will go out in the notes so that anybody listening to the podcast will have the actual link itself. But for those of you listening, guys, if you want to recite this or write it down, it's Craig Cody, CraigCody, Craig Cody and Company, CraigCodyandCompany.com/Gary Wilson, GaryWilson. And that's the link to get this awesome book. And I've already got it, and I appreciate that. I read a lot of. It's funny, in my library probably has over 3,000 books in it. Going back to the I don't know how far back, long time. Take a lot of years to read that, but I appreciate you sharing that. And one more question. This is always the one that I think when people hear your answer, they're going to know why they should work with you. And the question is, why do you do what you do? Because I know your background. You come from public service. Lots of years, in the force. And then now you're doing this, which demonstrates a couple of things to me personally. I love people who have their own business, number one. I also love it when people have come from a prior industry, because I'm looking for what did they bring from the prior industry. And I know you got to have the patience of Job to have done what you did all those years. But you also took the time to continue and further your education. And everybody I've ever known who succeeded, all of them are always continuing to self-educate. A lot of police officers I've known, most are degreed anyways. They already start off with a degree, and they're going to get masters and things like that. But what would you say is what was the impetus? What drove you to pursue this? Was this something in your family, your own personal experience, a close friend, or if you don't mind sharing,
Yeah, sure. So my dad was actually a first generation police officer. My son is actually just recently got promoted. He's a third generation. But I was an economics major before I became a police officer. But for me as a youngster, it was exciting chasing a perp through the streets of New York City. It was you're young, you have a lot of adrenaline and stuff like that. But when I sit down with somebody and I save them $20,000 or $30,000, I'll tell you what, that's just as exciting. So that's what gets me pumped up, being able to sit there and save somebody a ton of money.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. It's funny you mentioned that. I know one of my good friends, I was telling you about him earlier, one of my good friends is a police officer in Patterson, New Jersey. And I asked him about this. I said, Fausto, I'm teaching you, coaching you, and I want to help you do more and grow further and faster, build more wealth and income. But you're still a police officer, and you're doing two things, and you want to have, a relationship with your loved ones too. I said, do you still want to be police officers? There's something there that keeps you going. He says, yeah, Gary, you know what? He said, I still get a kick out of chasing a bad guy down the street and tackling him. So God bless. He's a funny guy. We share a lot of good stories. And one of my best friends is also a police captain down in Virginia Beach, Virginia. We went to school together. And nicest guys, calm, stable. And I guess you got to be to do what you do. But I think that's what it is you take to a new level in this business of yours. It's been working for 8 years. And I think it shows. So I want to congratulate you and commend you for doing that.
Thank
and
you.
Give you a big vote of confidence and thanks, not just from me, but from the thousands of people who are going to be listening to this. And I look forward to seeing it at a live event. And I'm sure we'll cross paths even before then,
Definitely. And as you know, I'll be launching my own podcast, The Progressive Dentist. So all your dental viewers out there can jump right on.
Is that so? You think that'll be the name, the podcast name, The Progressive Dentist?
It's The Progressive Dentist.
Well, let me know, and I'll promote it to the group.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, I think what you do is valuable. Any final words of wisdom or final thoughts that maybe your dad told you when you were a kid, something like that?
I just think it's important to do some planning, take the time to plan, communicate with your CPA, and you'll keep more of what you make.
Excellent. Well, listen, Craig, on behalf of all of us, thanks you once again for doing this. It's been awesome. I think people got out of it. They know what to do. They know where to go. They can get the book. And for all of you listening, you know where to go to get your advice if you're a dentist and probably any other practitioner or somebody who's in practice. Is that a fair statement? Like chiropractor?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. So listen, I hope you have a wonderful day. God bless you, Craig, and your family. And I look forward to crossing your paths next time.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Safe travels.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Real Estate Investing for Professional Men and Women. Be sure to go to myinvestmentservices.com to join our community and start building wealth today.